Good morning, and welcome to the Africa Weekly Talk. Today's subject on the docket is the journey of life and life after 50. I'm talking about the journey of life and life after 50. The period of positive change, personal growth, and new beginnings. That is what life after 50 is said to be. Period of positive change, personal growth, and new beginnings. Fellas, looking at ourselves and where we are in our life today, considering our age, most of us over 50, 55, 60 years of age, and then looking at all the life cycles that we have gone through from schooling, education, work, raising family, putting our kids through college, and then some of them graduating from universities and now working. So now life after 50 becomes the new beginning for all those of us who are 50 or 50 years of age and more. Because now we're looking at our life after retirement and enjoying all the hard work, all the difficulties that we have to go through, family issues, raising kids and all that stuff. So now life after 50, it becomes me and us time. Now it's us time. So we have to be more selfish towards what is good and best for we, the parents now. So fellas, this is a conversation that, every now and then you talk with family, friends, co-workers, and it comes up and then people will be asking, hey, when you retire, are you going to be moving back home or what are you going to be doing and all that stuff, So life after 50 is part of our daily conversations, especially with co-workers, family, and friends. And there's nothing wrong with that. Because after going through all these life cycles, especially raising kids and stuff, when it gets to this point, now it becomes us time, you and your wife or you and your husband. So everything has to be centered on creating an environment that will be better for you guys. So your investments has to go into elderly care, as well as, making sure that the lifestyle that you enjoy, that will make you happy, will be able to be attained. Right after your retirement, when you hit 55, 60, and so on and so forth. And this is the conversation that I was having with a couple of friends of mine about a month ago, when we were talking about the investments, building houses in our native countries, and what these houses will become of, because our children who were born either in the US, Europe, Asia, or wherever we live in now, they didn't grow up in our native countries. So they might have seen things differently. But like I said to a couple of my friends, look, at the end of the day, as far as you keep visiting, you take your children to these places, to visit and stuff. There's nothing wrong to have something home that you can go there and enjoy as a family. Because I don't really believe in the concept of going to your native country after so many years of hard work living outside your country and then go and stay in hotel and all that stuff. I don't believe in that. I'm 100% believer that if you have moved from your native country and you live in somewhere, working and earning a living there, you have to put in place, especially at least have a 1, 2, 3 bedroom apartment or a house, whether you build it or you buy it, so that when you visit, or even when you decide to move back home after retirement, you have your own place to have your peace of mind. That is something that you can never take away. And that is something that I hope that most people who intend or to visit or to move back to their native countries will do. Because there's nothing like having your own keys to your place. You don't have to rely on family there or friends and all that stuff, man, fellas. Just to have your peace of mind as you working here, as you building your life in wherever you are. Make sure that at the end of the day, you can also afford to have a place. It doesn't have to be anything big, fancy. I mean, whatever you can afford. 2, 3 bedroom, flat, apartment, or a house, so that you and your family, anytime your kids, you go there with your kids and your family, can also have your peace of mind and enjoy some of that hard work. And this was a conversation that me and a couple of friends were having about a month ago, especially when it comes to our kids, who were not born in our native countries and how these things are going to be taken care of and all that stuff. And I said, look, when you get past these 50 years and you're looking towards retirement, now we have to be selfish. It has to be about me and us time. I mean, that is you and your wife. Because at the end of the day, or you and your husband, at the end of the day, it's more about what you guys have worked all your life for. You've worked all your life, living somewhere, you've put all these things in place. Now is the time for you guys to start looking and taking care of yourselves, to make sure that everything that you have worked for is there to benefit and make you guys happy in your older age. That's the bottom line. No ifs and buts about it, fellows. And we talk about these things. And I remember quite recently, about a couple of years ago, an old Indian fellow that used to live in my neighborhood, about a couple of houses next from my place. And he from our place, and he talked to me about his intention of moving back to India after he retired, because he had his kids living in California. And right after he retired, I mean, this guy he was a scientist in NIH all his life, and eventually retired to India. And just about a few months ago, he came visiting and I saw him. And he talked how life has been very good for him. So at the end of the day, you have a situation where you know somebody, whether your co-worker or somebody you work with, or a neighbor, who are also from different places. And for some reason, it's like it's universal. Everybody that migrates from somewhere to live somewhere, they always have this intention of either moving back home after they retire, and they also plan building a place or having a place so that they can go and stay there whilst they are retired. I mean, it's something that, for some reason, you talk to people and everybody brings up that. Because I meet people, when we talk, so when you plan to retire, so I'm still working on it. And they were like, oh, are you planning to move back home? Or are you going to still be living here when you retire? And I'm like, nah, I'm more of moving back home and back and forth, because the kids will still be here. So I would like to be moving back and forth, I said, oh, okay, So at the end of the day, life after 50 is centered on what is good for you and your wife, or you and your husband, And I also hear a lot about people talking about their investments that they plan to do whilst, they're still working, whether living in America or Europe or Asia, back home, and so forth. And we talked about that situation. And they talked about how some of these investments didn't go well as planned. And that's one advice I always give people, that look, I really don't subscribe to this notion that when you move from your native country and you go and live somewhere and you work in there, and you're living there, making your money there, you definitely have to go home and invest in your native country, regardless of the circumstances and so on and so forth, just for the sake of investment. I don't subscribe to that, fellas. Yes, if the climate is good for investment and you can monitor that investment and you think that investment is worthwhile, it's all well and good for you. By the end of the day, I also believe that wherever you live, whether in the States or Europe or Asia, wherever, and the environment, the business climate, and the returns of your investment is better than your native home, then invest in that country. Because I'm a strong believer of that. I believe in investing in where you live. If the economic system it's very good for you to get better returns. I'd rather invest in the United States where I live than to go and invest in my native country. Because at the end of the day, it's all about returns. Money speaks all languages. Like an old friend always used to tell me, money speaks all languages, fellows. It doesn't matter where you invest at. At the end of the day, as far as you're getting good returns, you can take it from here and go and spend it in your native country. It doesn't matter. I mean, let's look at it this way, fellows. Elon Musk, the wealthiest man on this planet Earth. Elon Musk, born and bred in South Africa. He moved to his mother's native country of Canada, and then eventually moved to the United States about a couple of years down there, and has been living in the United States forever now. He's the wealthiest person on this planet Earth today. I don't know of him investing in any investment he has in South Africa. I don't know of. I mean, he doesn't have any investment in South Africa. All his investments are in the United States. Everything that he came up with it in the United States. And everything he owns is in the United States of America and other factories that he has in somewhere in China and other parts of the world. But I didn't hear that Elon Musk went to South Africa to invest in South Africa because he's from South Africa. He would love to if the climate of investment down there is good. He's a businessman. So at the end of the day, it's about the returns. It's about where you have a good business economic environment for you to invest in. So if your native country has a good climate economic environment for you to invest in, that's all well and good. Invest there. But you also hear all these stories that people always talk about. When they invest, whether through families or friends in their native countries, and it doesn't go well. It pans out very horribly. I mean, a lot of times, all the stories you hear about people losing a lot of money, most cases. In some cases, too, it ends up working well for them, or depending on the people that you trust to invest with in these places. But at the end of the day, like I said earlier, it's all about the returns. It's all about what you feel comfortable with. So it's more like to each his or her own. But I'm not a subscriber of, because I'm from here, I have to go and invest there just for the sake of being from there. No, I'm sorry. I don't subscribe to that. I subscribe to where the environment for investment is great. And in the end, I will get a better return. That's all it is. So if I can get better return in Europe, I invest in Europe. If I can get better return in Asia, I will invest in Asia. If in America, I invest in America. If in Africa, I will invest in Africa. By the end of the day also, when you look at all of that, you also have to look at the economic stability of these countries. And that's what you take into account. You have to factor all these things in and then make that decision. But one key thing that you can never take away is the fact that you have to make sure that you have a place in your native country, a place that you call your own house or apartment. Because at the end of the day, you don't want to be going back home with your family and talking about living in a hotel or going to stay with family. I mean, initially, yes, you can stay with family, and stuff because you're going to visit. But at some point, if you decide to move back home when you retire, around 50, 55, 60, 65 years of age, then you have to have had a place in your native country so that you can go down there with your own keys and have your family or children visit every now and then enjoy all the hard work, all that seed that you've sown in Europe, America, or Asia. So life after 50 years is a new beginning. But you have to put these things in place because now you're talking about elderly care as well. So you have to invest in areas where at the end of the day, yes, you have kids. For those who have kids, you have kids. But you also have to remember the world has changed. The world that we live in is not the same world that we grew up in 30, 40, 50, 60 years ago. Because yes, your kids might come to visit. Your kids will help with your taking care of you and all that stuff. But you also have to invest in elderly care. So that at some point also, you have to pay people for them to help take care of you. If they have to take care of the house, somebody living in the house to make sure that you're okay and all that stuff. Because you're talking about 65, 70 years of age. At that point, you always have to have somebody present to help with activities in the house. And that is where you also have to have investments. I mean, money set aside for that. So at the age of 50, 55, looking towards retirement and all that stuff, my advice to people is that, yes, after you've put your children through college, they've gone through college, graduated from university and now working and stuff. Now it has to be me and us time. This has to be centered only on you and your husband or you and your wife. It's all about you guys now. It's not about your kids anymore. It's about making sure that life is good and better for you guys at that age. And the kids will also understand, so whatever you have, whatever you plan, if 100% of inheritance that you want to give your kids, I mean, make sure you split it up. If you were 50% to them, 50% to make sure you take care of yourselves. Or let's say you give them 60% and 40% to make sure that you have this money set aside to make sure that you have all this elderly care that you need for your physical and as well as your health condition and all of that stuff. So everything don't have to be dependent upon your children, So, I mean, look, fellas, I mean, this is a subject that, it comes up a lot. And friends, always, when we meet, and, we talk about it. We talk about it. And I hear some people come up and say, oh, I plan to retire and go and maybe build a business back home, And I'm like, hold on, fellas. I mean, building a business back home after the age of 55, 60, 65, to me is not a good advice because especially looking at most of the places that we're talking about the business climate and environment, they are very stressful. And after you have lived in an environment where the system is totally different, you don't want to go and put yourself in a situation where you're going to be investing in an environment where also the system is totally different. Because you have become accustomed to the Western system of economic development, where things work differently. Now you are moving to your country, your native country, even India, even in China. If you're moving to China or India or Africa or Latin America, things are not the same down there. Especially if you've lived in the United States or Europe or Japan, where things are totally different. So at that age, I always tell my friends, I say, oh no, fellas, I mean, I wouldn't want to go and invest in any business at around the age of 60, 65, especially taking into consideration the systems that exist in our native countries in Africa. I'm sorry, fellas. That's a fact, because to me, that's a recipe of heart attack. And I don't want to put myself in that situation. So at the end of the day, I tell people, hold on. If you're going to do that, why don't you invest where you live? Look at the climate where you live in. If that investment in that climate is better, then just invest there. Because like I said earlier, money speaks all languages. It doesn't matter whether you make it in the United States or you make it in Africa or you make it in Asia. As far as you're getting a better returns, put that money where you are getting a better return, where the economic system is stable. Because you talk about retirement money. We're not talking about you still having the ability or the capability of doing the same work or, moving around that you were used to when you were 40 years of age doing. So now this money has to be invested in areas where it's economically stable. You don't just throw it anywhere, So I keep telling my friends, I said, look, with me, when I'm retired, I'm retired. I'd rather invest in the United States system and make sure that I get my return here, rather than going to start something in Africa and then where the economic situation is totally different, and not at that age though, because that age to me, is a recipe for heart attack because the systems is so stressful to the extent that you don't want to put yourself in that situation. You want to have a peace of mind. That's why they say that the age of 50 is the beginning of what? Positive change, personal growth, and new beginnings. So you talk about positive change and personal growth. Now, those are things that you have to look at. Those are things that don't need stressfulness. So at the end of the day, you have to take all those things into consideration. And then you look at the inheritance of as well also for your kids. Because I believe that when you let your kids visit every now and then, eventually they'll be coming down there to visit you. So I don't have any qualms with that. If they decide, if you decide to leave a property for them and so on and so forth. I mean, to me, that's a good thing for them to be able to always have a meaning or a reason to be going back home also to visit. They can also go there with their kids, even if you are still not alive, they can still go there and visit and enjoy that place as well. So that's also a good thing. But at the end of the day, when all is said and done, it has to be about you and your spouse and what makes you guys happy. After you've put through all these struggles of putting your kids through college and education and all of that stuff, after you've done all that stuff, when you get to that age of 50, 55, 60 going, and looking towards retirement, that is the age that you have to be able to sit back and enjoy all the hard work that you have put in place. Because sometimes it's unfortunate, that when people say that, oh, I work hard in America or in London or Germany or Japan, and I send my money back home, to go and do business back home. And I'm like, hold on, fellas. Yes, you want to do things back home. But you know what? You also have to enjoy some of your money wherever you are. It's not just about waiting till when you retire, but you also enjoy some of the money. Put yourself in a little better situation to enjoy some of it because that's your money. So, I mean, because you hear about these stories all the time. You hear them all the time. People, send money back home, to family, friends, trusted people. They tend to believe that they are trustworthy people. And in the end, they get screwed up. So at the end of the day, make sure you enjoy some of your money at wherever you are. And then when you retire also, you enjoy all that hard work that you put in place. And then whatever you can give your kids, you also give it to them. But at the end of the day, it has to be you and your spouse first. You and your husband first, and you and your wife first. You people have to make sure that you have built a system that will benefit you guys to make sure that you are well taken care of. So you also enjoy all that hard work and dedication that you did for your kids when they were children. Now is the time for you guys to enjoy that fruit. Everything that you put in place, you have to enjoy that. So, all right, fellas, if it's Sunday, it's the Africa Weekly Talk. God bless you guys and have a great week. Thank you guys and peace and love.